My 5 favorite dream pop albums of 2023. Simple as. Alright, so this first album is called Can't Go Back to My Word by Suzuki. The reason I chose this Japanese album to be first on this list is because I think it deserves way more recognition than what it's currently receiving. I loved this album, and I was very surprised to see that Suzuki only has 63 monthly listeners on Spotify. This release is just filled with strange but beautiful rhythms and gossamer synths. Then there's the vocalist, whose delivery sounds quite anxious at times. I've personally interpreted this album as the process of going through a breakup with a partner. If there was anything it reminded me of, it's a 2002 glitch pop album called Hard Nisa Seat, except a bit more subdued and Cocteau Twinsy. One can hear bells reminiscent of Laura Lee and rhythmic tappings that sound like something you'd hear on your favorite ASMR channel. I enjoyed the anticipation at the beginning of each song, wondering what kind of dreamy sounds I would be hearing. With this in mind, I give this album a score of... Nah, just kidding. We don't do album ratings on this channel. However, I will share some of my favorite songs. Some of my favorites include The Reference Engine, God Only Knows, and Paradox. Dreamer by Nabihah Iqbal. Where the last album found beauty in its diverse sound palette, I adored the spacey textures on Dreamer. Iqbal had an unusual entrance into music, being a human rights lawyer beforehand. Dreamer is her second studio album. It fuses atmospheric guitars typically heard in shoegaze with a cool house sound. These two elements create an uplifting, euphoric atmosphere. At times this album sounds like a rave on the moon. Iqbal will have these spoken word moments that kind of put you in a trance, especially in Sunflower. The lyrics on The World Couldn't See Us are brilliant, which I think may be an intimate reflection of her experience growing up and finding her identity. Then there's A Tender Victory, which begins with electric guitar strummings that unfold into a heavenly ambience. I was just enamored by this album's beauty. My favorite songs from Dreamer are In Light, Sunflower, and Sky River. Blonde Redhead has been active as a group for more than 3 decades at this point. I wasn't too familiar with their work before hearing Sit Down for Dinner, but I became a fan soon afterwards. This is their 10th studio album, and their first in 9 years. As surprising as it may sound, this dream pop album sounds, well, quite dreamy, but it also has some sunshiny, psychedelic elements. Sit Down for Dinner has a certain stripped back, kind of low-key sound. We're not hit with 16 layers of guitar like some of the other records on this list. However, I wouldn't call this album overly simplistic. The sounds we do here are gorgeous little flourishes that shoot off my dopamine receptors. For example, one can hear birds chirping in Rest of Her Life, or rain sounds in Sit Down for Dinner Part 1. In this record, Blonde Redhead very elegantly reflects the beauty and fragility of life itself. The themes are universal, like aging, love, and death. I fell in love with Kazu Makino's whispery falsetto vocals on Kiss Her, Kiss Her. She's backed by Simone and Amadeo Pache, twin brothers who are on guitars, keys, drums, and occasionally vocals. The sounds they create are so beautiful and a bit melancholic. My favorite tracks off this album are Snowman, Kiss Her, Kiss Her, Sit Down for Dinner Parts 1 and 2. Okay, so this is one of the most celebrated albums of last year. I'm talking about Softscars by Yeule, and it's one of the most creative and intimate records I've ever heard. While this is a video on dream pop records, this album could easily appear on a video about glitch pop, shoegaze, or even electronic music. There's such versatility in sound throughout this record, whether it be the disorientingly heavy 4UI12 or the gentle piano instrumental Fish in the Pool. Singaporean musician Nat Chamil is the sole member of Yeule. Now, according to an interview with Dazed, they grew up living a nomadic life, leading to feelings of isolation and depression. Their music reflects their experience of finding comfort online. Each track on this album is a poignant reflection of Yeule's past, thus the name Softscars. For example, Software Update seems to cover the personalities we craft online, whereas Inferno seems to be about the inability to let go of a previous relationship. Needless to say, Softscars gets quite dark at times, but I think there's beauty in it too. I think one reason this album resonated with me is that Yeule and I are about the same age, and it made me think about Gen Z and how we're the first generation to grow up with social media. This album is a brutally honest depiction of what it's like finding a sense of identity online and some of the mental health implications that come along with it. Some of my favorite tracks off this album are For You I 12, Dazies, and Blood Bunny. Oh boy, I had to save them for last. I want to make it clear, even though they're dream pop legends, I genuinely wouldn't have included this album unless I actually enjoyed it. And man, did I enjoy this album. For those of you who don't know, Everything Is Alive is the 5th studio album by Slowdive, released 6 years after their self-titled comeback record. You know, anyone can buy a bunch of overdrive and distortion pedals to create a wall of sound, but it's how you use these effects if you want to create a memorable dream pop record. Slowdive continues to have an amazing ability to paint a vivid picture with their sound. Shanty creates a feeling like you're lost at sea, with these airy guitars and what sounds like the plucking of a harpsichord. Andalucia Plays is sort of a slowcore ambient song that seems to harken back to their Mojave 3 days. Then there's the Slab, which has these dark, pulsating drones that for me creates the imagery like you're surfing on a black hole. There's something in this album for everyone, whether it be Alife, which reminds me a bit of their Souvlaki days, or Chained to a Cloud, which is much more in Pygmalion territory. And that's not just to say Everything Is Alive is simply just a nostalgic record. I think Slowdive manages to evolve their sound through electronic experimentation. This is especially true for some of the heavier sounding tracks, like Skin in the Game or the aforementioned The Slab. I am so happy for the group, and I am very much looking forward to hearing some of these songs live this summer. Some of my favorite tracks off this album include Shanty, Alife, and The Slab. So that's my list. Remember, I haven't heard every single dream pop album released last year. What are some of your favorite songs from these albums? Share your favorite albums of 2023 in the comments. We'd love to hear them. As always, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, click the bell, all that great dreamy stuff to support our channel. I also want to make sure we shout out our 3 patrons, Andrea Leon, Henry Hoyt, and Jim Venaria. We greatly appreciate your support so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Stay dreamy, everyone.